Hi, brothers and sisters. I want to talk to you about why freedom of speech is important. As we've seen over the last few years, it is not just important, it is essential. If you haven't read the Declaration of Independence for a while, or the Constitution of these United States of America, which some of the most talented folks in our history signed, put their John Hancock on, one of whom, the very first, was John Hancock. That became known as another name for a signature. In the amendments to the Constitution of these United States, the very first amendment, let me just read it quickly for you. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. These things had all been happening under the British. These rights, these God-given natural rights of natural law, were all being trampled upon one time or another by the British. That's what started the 13 colonies to declare independence from the strongest empire in the world. So why freedom of speech is important is that, well, you cannot retain a constitutional republic without it. That's the reason our ancestors put it on the #1 amendment. These things aren't by accident. So without it, all the rest of the rights unravel, because you can't, if you don't have freedom of speech, you can't redress ill treatment by the government. You can't worship God the way you see fit. You can't commit yourself to the bonds of the relationship that makes a constitutional republic. The freedom to choose who you associate with, to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, to be sovereign members of mankind. You must have freedom of speech. You must not feel trodden upon by those who we elect to represent us in our capitals, both in the states, in our 50 states, and in the federal government that we send there, originally only for a very short period of time, to represent us, to make sure that the government doesn't get so big that it becomes like the British, trampling on these God-given rights. That's the basis for the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of these United States. And we must stay united. And that is how you stay free. the cornerstone, you might say, of a free republic, a representative republic, is the freedom of speech, and to not live in fear of exercising that right. And the rights are not granted by the government. The rights are granted by natural law, which is spelled out by God in the God rhythms that you observe by spending time in the garden, in the field, in the wilderness, observing the still, the remaining natural flow. That's where it is. That's how you can get the quickest understanding of natural law. That's why they've tried to keep us from exercising that freedom. So when there was a long deliberation and they were deciding on the Declaration of Independence, and they were deciding on what direction this government would be, Ben Franklin was coming out in Philadelphia, where he lived. Somebody recognized him, which of course they would, and they said, "Ben, what is it then?" Meaning these deliberations. What is the government? What will it be? And he said, "Madam, it's a republic if you can keep it." And so that freedom of speech, that cornerstone of a representative republic, also requires each of us to partake in that government, because we are the government. Every single citizen of these United States, whether you're a New Yorker, Oregonian, Floridian, Mainer, Georgian, from Utah, I don't know what that is, Utahian. Don't get mad, I'm not from there. You must take part, and that's why the mesmerizing television was invented, to put us in a stupor so we wouldn't pay attention to these, what's presented as, it's too big, you can't make a difference. Well, yeah, you have to make a difference. You must make a difference, or you have no freedom. And we've seen that chipped away, haven't we? Do you think the government telling you can collect rainwater in a barrel for yourself, or process milk from your own cow the way that you want to process it, or that you have to wear a seatbelt, that you have to register your car? Do you think that is freedom? Do you think that that's what they put their life on the line, our founding fathers, to go against that biggest government, that biggest empire in the world, and to sacrifice, and many of them did, their property, their lives, even their kids, that died in the Revolutionary War. Did they do that, so that we can have this bloated, centralized planned government that gives out all this stuff that's not in the Constitution, guys. It's not in the Constitution. But luckily, the Constitution, when we demand it, it shows us the way, almost like the Ten Commandments. If everyone just followed, the Constitution, or if, it would be like if everyone just followed the Ten Commandments. Now it's simplifying it, but it would be a better place, wouldn't it? And you have to admit that, even if you don't follow the Ten Commandments, what's listed out in the Ten Commandments is like what's listed out as amendments to the Constitution, and what is the Bill of Rights, and what is the Declaration of Independence, what's spelled out in that, why, what was going on. Guys, you need to get a copy of this. You can get this. You can reread it. It's easy. It's just easy not to do it as well. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of these United States. That's the way our ancestors used to say it. Even that's been rewritten. The instead of these. It allows the centralization of it even more. Just one key word like that. So that's why freedom of speech is important. That's why it isn't okay to silence somebody just because they don't agree with us. That is why it isn't okay to call someone vile names just because they don't see things the way you see it. You don't have to be around people, okay? You have a right to walk away. But as fellow members of mankind, we must learn to be patient, be loving. You can try to explain using the facts your point of view, but if someone chooses to walk a different path, we all have free will. That's part of natural law as well. That's why the Declaration of Independence was made. Free will. There were people that didn't agree back then, and there are people that don't agree now. And there will always be people that see things differently. But how you approach that is going to determine whether we can keep this republic or not. And I say we can, and I say we will. And we will strengthen it because people are becoming more and more aware that you need to take part. You are the government. The government, elected officials do not boss us around. Mandates, no. We need to redo a lot of that. And the bloated size of it, about 95% is waste. I mean, and we all live our lives like that. So it's a reflection of us. So as we get better, we demand better from our representatives. We are the representatives, and we don't make permanent positions of these things, and we don't aggrandize ourselves, and we don't enrich ourselves permanently through the rest of our lives for serving for 2 or 4 or 6 years. If you serve as a representative, that's great, but that shouldn't make you a millionaire if you weren't before. If it's citizens becoming representatives, then you shouldn't come out 1,000 times wealthier than when you went in because of those connections there. And that's opening the door for a lot of graft, a lot of corruption. Do you think that maybe the government is getting more corrupt because of this permanent sort of fixture that they've designed for themselves, and this underclass of unelected officials that stay there even when the government is voted out and new people are voted in, but here's this bloated government official that's not elected, that's been in there for 30 years, in all the three-letter agencies and all the, you know, all these, well, not in the Declaration. I mean, not in the Constitution. All these bureaus are not in the Constitution. So what the government is doing because of all these bureaus is unconstitutional or anti-constitutional. And they are fighting for their lives. Their way of looking at the government is that the problem is these bureaus just completely exist to keep expanding their powers. They want to get a little more money. They come up with lame brain ideas to get more money. And there's a lot of good, hardworking people in these bureaus, but it becomes infected with that need to continue and grow their particular group. And there's just so many tits on a pig, on a sow, and there's just so many piglets that can fit in there, right? So that's how they get this piece of pie mentality that is not natural law. It's, you know, it's like a socialism, Marxism. They eat all the pie. And law of nature, you just make more pie. But you can't do that when all your energy is put into feeding the piglets. That poor sow needs a break. I think we're going to see that break soon. Big break. Big rest. There's pain, and then there's rest. And this is part of the circles of life. If you observed that in the wilderness, you wouldn't be so shocked that we, being part of the wilderness, this would circle around and this would include us in it. And we need to be better stewards, but we also of the Constitution, yes, of the wilderness, yeah, yes, of our brothers and sisters, of one another, of God's love, Papa, Heavenly Papa. So that's the bottom line right there, folks. And freedom through sovereignty. Each one of us is in charge, like, of our family. Each one of us is in charge of our free will. You can't have a bureaucrat trying to stifle that. They are there to protect our natural rights, not tell us what we can and can't do. And the second they forget that, they will come and try to stop the freedom of speech. They will come and start chipping away at the Constitution and calling it a living, breathing document. That's DCLEs for we don't need that anymore because it's too constraining, right? Because It actually puts fetters on ambition beyond the Constitution, on human lust for power. The Constitution actually has things set up to control that. The three separate groups that watch over each other. One isn't supposed to be more powerful than the other. They're supposed to keep the court, the Supreme Court, the executive branch, the legislative branch, judicial is the Supreme Court. So those three branches are supposed to look out over each other and protect. It's all about protecting freedom. It's freedom through responsibility. See, we have to be part of that freedom. We have to be part of that thrust for natural law that we've been drifting away from. So the government we have is a reflection of the majority of the citizens who haven't been paying attention to these things. But more and more people are all the time. It's a very exciting time. Very exciting to see as we're realizing this is a great document. These are amazing times. People have not been made aware of the truth to such a vast, great level as we are experiencing right now. So keep becoming more aware of that. Keep using your speech, the pen, the word. It's mightier than the sword. We don't have to have violence to change this back to the republic that it was designed to be. Representative republic. Is it a perfect system? No. But it's tons better than everything that's been tried before. Because as long as you are a moral and just society, you can keep the Constitution protected. So that's why I talk about discernment, developing a relationship with Holy Spirit, so you can stay on the straight and narrow trail, so you can protect freedom of speech, freedom to worship as you see fit, freedom to assemble, freedom to address the government when they're out of kilter, when their natural lust for power goes unchecked because there's too much infiltration from abroad. And these things happened back then. They knew that this could happen. They tried to control how much money would be going in for special interests and things like that. They talked about those things back then. That's why it's also essential to read some of the letters that George Washington wrote, that Thomas Jefferson and John Adams wrote, that Samuel Adams wrote, that John Adams wrote to his son, John Quincy Adams. Things that Betty Ross spoke about. There's so many important founding fathers. Ben Franklin. What did he do with some of his inventions? I mean, you need to seek out some of this information and don't be fooled by the Rockefellerian school system that's just not been teaching the truth for too long of a time. Yeah, we can all educate ourselves much better than a Marxist system. And they've been planning this for 100 years, folks. It's just gone into overdrive over the last 10 or so. As they saw their lies are being exposed, especially the last 2 or 3 years, they started really freaking out and going fast forward. And so you see, these things, reading to children about twisted stuff and wanting to expose them to sex way before that anybody should ever be thinking about such things. And all the perversions that we've been seeing going fast forward. But it's been an eye-opener, hasn't it? And then we've been reaching out to one another all around the world to find peaceful, loving solutions to these buggers. So there's lots of change coming. We're right in the middle of it. So sometimes it's harder to see it because it's all around us. It's so fast. Keeps your head swimming sometimes. Then you need to step back, go rebalance yourself. Nice walk in the park, nice walk on the beach, barefoot, in the grass in your backyard. Or get one of these, it's the second best, but it's still good, grounding mats that you could plug right in to the ground in most of your sockets. And it's a way you can balance it. Listen to some beautiful music. Watch something funny, just silly and funny. Monty Python, or I don't know, whatever floats your boat. But then go back and continue to push for the truth, which is God's truth. Not opinion. Everyone has those, right? And some of them smell kind of bad. But it's free will. So you can't get mad at everybody that doesn't wake up as you're waking up. And we don't confuse that with the misdirection of the term woke. That's pop culture crap, and it's all meant to mesmerize, tell lie vision, fear porn, MSM, talking heads. It's what they call channels, programming. They tell us. You just need to start to see it. And you build that relationship. You develop your discernment. You ask Holy Spirit or your higher self, if that's what you want to call it. Make sure it's a goodness. It's a good being. Make sure that you're not totally being selfish all the time. I know that's not what... There's a lot of good people that see things in different directions. But you need that discernment so you're not being tricked, because there's also a lot of evil. And we need to be able to talk about that sometimes too. But there's a lot of good. And it's winning. You know why? God already won. So stay loving, stay wise to do battle with the evil. You need to stay as wise as a serpent if you're going to battle a serpent. You need to be kind and bold through God. God will help you. You just need to ask. You have not, for you ask not. Jesus teaches us this. So ask and give and be loving. You can give a lot through time, through, encouragement, through walking what Jesus teaches us to walk. And remember to thank God for sending his only begotten Son to save us. And if that bothers you, you have free will. All I can tell you is he is very loving. And he's advocating on the side of God for us. And he allowed himself to die to release Holy Spirit so that he could dwell inside us. And Holy Spirit is sweet and loving like a mother. I've spoken to him about this. Why don't you? It's quite delightful and it's very funny. God has a sense of humor. God is a man and a woman as far as humanity's understanding can be. But he's neither one in reality. Don't burn me at the stake. I have free will. I have discernment. I love Jesus. I have a relationship with Holy Spirit. And I've double-checked these things as he's teaching me. And I do know it's goodly and godly. So I just said that last part because a lot of people are into this divine feminine movement in this new age kind of, self-serving stuff. Well, yeah, you do need to make sure you take care of yourself, but don't get tricked. This has derailed a lot of movements in the past, and they know exactly how to do it, the little liars. And you can't be turned against each other. This is a time for unity, even through the difference. Vive la différence, as the French say. We can learn from all these different societies, but you need to stay on the straight and narrow trail while you're doing it. So be loving, be open-minded, but don't let your mind be so open that your brain falls out, because your heart will go flying out with it. It's just a thought. So I'm glad to touch base on why freedom of speech is important. I think this will help you. And I think if you get your hands on some of our ancestors' writings and actually read the Declaration of Independence, even if you've read it before, reread it. This is the time for action. Reading is an action, and it can lead to actual physical action in the public. So you can help to rise to be a sovereign member of mankind. Mankind. Stress that word. It's essential to where we're headed. Onward and upward. So if you would, subscribe, thumbs up, Rumble, depending where I'm on, BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, other places, lots of social media stuff, hikingdruid. And also check below, I'm going to have a link where you can get my newsletter. I'll be talking a lot about issues of freedom, the Great Awakening, learning about God flow in the wilderness, herbs, how a lot of your wellness and good health is all around us in the forest for free. And the liars didn't want us to know this. And they've been trying to shut it up for about 150 years. But for thousands, our ancestors knew about these natural remedies. So I talk about that in the newsletter. So there's a link right below this video in that. And you can sign up for my newsletter and get a free guide about some pine needle tea, how to find pine needles, peppermint, how you can use it to strengthen your immune system and things like that. So it's a free guide, so check it out, and I hope to see you on the next video. And remember, you are the apple of our Papa's eye. He loves you. I love you. Go and do some fun stuff. Laugh with your family. The enemy, the little liar, hates it when we're enjoying with our families. When you enjoy, it's a verb. It's like entrusting and enjoying. You're sharing that joy with others. It's a great way to cleanse a room of any evil spirits as well. Laughing in love, in God love, laughing in God love. Don't tear people down, lift them up. Encourage, enjoy. That means add to it. That EN, it means add to it. Share it. Spread that love around. Be the light and the love that you always say you wish you saw more of in the world. When you walk into a room, it should be there because you just got there. So be loving, patient, kind, but you can also be strong. Don't be a doormat. All right? Love ya. I'll talk to you soon. See you soon. Bye.